the affirmation this morning. I am expressing a divine and perfect purpose. Every one of us is right now expressing a divine and perfect purpose. We may not be aware of it, we may not be fully manifest in that purpose, but it is there and it is real. The question this morning is, when was I happy? Or better yet, when was I happiest? And of course, we know in New Thought, it isn't things that make us happy, it's not experiences that make us happy, but some of us are made happy by experiences and by things. But that's not the core source of our happiness. Our happiness comes just because we are made to be happy. We're happy for no reason. But in looking at your purpose and your source of purpose and happiness in life, what I'm inviting you to do today is last week we talked about the fact that if we're going to work at looking and identifying our purpose, then we're going to begin from a foundation of love. And then love of ourselves, love of our life, love of those around us, unconditional love, just like the little puppy dog that we talked about. And now this week we're going to talk about when was I happy or when was I happiest? Because that begins the key for understanding what it is that your purpose needs to be. And as we talk about this, one of the things I want to really touch on is we think so often our purpose is to be this or to do that. But the reality is that our purpose changes with our lives from moment to moment and stage to stage. Some of us think there's one purpose, and it is a reality that there are many purposes in your life. How many of you remember Dr. Margaret Mead? Probably a few here. She was an anthropologist, and she wrote not only about anthropology, but she wrote how anthropology relates to life. And very much like New Thought, she wrote about how anthropology is practical. She was always talking about anthropology and her own life, and how anthropology came alive in her life, and it came alive in her understanding of life. But in any event, she made the comment that she was married, I believe, 3 times. And she said, every marriage was right for the time in life where I was. What Margaret Mead was saying was that in her life, she probably didn't want 3 marriages, she didn't desire that necessarily, but in the course of it, the 3 were exactly where she needed to be at the right time. This issue of purpose and happiness and life changing is so important because we often think I'm here to serve a purpose and to fulfill a mission. Well, I think that's a nice idea and it's a good thought, but I believe that we're here to serve a purpose. And what's the affirmation this morning? A divine and perfect purpose, that we and you and I all express a divine and perfect purpose always. And the divine and perfect purpose is appropriate to the time and place in which we are in life. And that this idea that we have some great work to accomplish and then finish it and we move on is really counter to what spirituality and New Thought are about, because this life is only a little snippet of who and what we really are. And so it isn't a completion. It's not that we're trying to complete something in this life. It is that we are in the process of this life so that we can come to a deeper and more profound understanding of ourselves and others and the reality and truth and meaning of life for ourselves. So this purpose, back to the question, when was I happy? When were you happy? When were you happiest in your life? Not when were you happiest in terms of what you did or where you were necessarily, but where was it that you were the happiest? Go back to that time, and I'm not asking you to do that today and sitting here because you can't, but it takes some real introspection to say, when was I happy? One of the questions that we'd ask people very often is, what makes you happy? And you know what? People would look, 90+% of the people would look at us and say, think. You have to think, what makes me happy? And then when you say, when did you laugh last? They'd have to think about that one. And what makes you laugh? They'd have to think about that one. And if we have to think about those things, when you think about how important that is, we ought to know right away and be able to go back to that place. So When we look at the beginning and the foundation of finding purpose in life, what were the happiest times in your life? Go back there. And during this week, when you do go back there, look at those happiest times in your life. And don't look at them from the standpoint of it was the time that I lived in this house or the time that I... What was it that really made you happy? It was a combination of all the things that took place in that experience. And in that experience, by looking at it, you'll begin to see what it is that made you happy and what it is that truly brought you to the point of happiness in that circumstance or situation. The past is not the place to plant the seed of our purpose. And if we do, we begin to think that what we've done in the past is the greatest accomplishment of our life, when in fact we are accomplishing, and we are, as we know in New Thought, we are exactly where? We are exactly where we're supposed to be. And who brought us to this place? Did God bring us to this place? We brought ourselves to this place. God's will for us is good and only good. God's will for us never changes. That we bring ourselves to the place where we are. And so if the place where we are doesn't seem to have purpose and meaning, doesn't seem to have happiness and joy, then that's where we brought ourselves. And the magnificent thing about New Thought is that we can change our way of thinking. And when we do change our way of thinking, we can bring ourselves to a new and different place. And we can bring ourselves to a new and different place by looking at the past but not living in the past. By living in the present moment right where we are and saying this is the way that it is. If you're depressed, how are you? You're depressed. But you don't have to stay depressed. If you're sick, you're sick. If you're whatever you are, you're there. But in the midst of that place, there's always the opportunity to change. The affirmation is, I am expressing a divine and perfect purpose. How many of you have known a rather unloving person in your life? Because that person is loving, lovable, they just are not expressing it. And what does New Thought tell us? Look beyond appearances. So the bad guys in your life are really who? The good guys. And we're called to see the good guys. Jesus Christ did that. He saw the good guys. What happened with Matthew? Remember Matthew? Matthew, the tax collector, right? When he was walking around with tax collectors, what did people say? Oh my goodness. And not only did he like him, but he went to his house and he had dinner. And you know, Scripture tells us that when he went to have dinner, what happened? The glorious guardians of good went after him to see he can't really be doing that. But he saw the good guy in the midst of the badness of people. And so that ability to see, beyond the surface to the reality of that which is key and fundamental to our faith. To see the reality and to see truth. To see truth. And the truth is what? The truth is that you and I and everyone is created in the likeness and image of God and is created perfectly for a divine and perfect purpose. And those perfect purposes, that perfect life, is sometimes not shining forth, but it's there. It's always there. So the bad guys are really the good guys. And the bad experiences are what? Really the good experiences. Because they're there to teach us, to bring out that which is already innately within us. And that which is innately within us is our own divine affirmation, purpose. And go into those experiences of when you were happiest in your life and take it apart. Take it apart. Will you go back to a point in time and say college was your happiest time? Why was college your happiest time? Was it because you were learning? Was it because you liked the environment? Was it because you liked the people? What was it? And that, you see, you begin to look at what these happy times are. What made you happy in the past? Even look at what makes you happy in the present moment. What is it that makes you happy? It isn't the surface of what we see that makes us, that contributes to our happiness. And also remember, these things and these times are not making us happy, but they give us an indication of what our purpose is, because our purpose is always trying to get out. And our purpose gets out and is manifest fully and completely when we demonstrate happiness and joy. A happy and joyful person has purpose and meaning. And they can tell you what it is. And they can probably tell you what it is concisely. Because they're happy and they're joyful always. And when they are connected with that which is the cause and the source of their happiness and their joy. Whatever it is that you believe has made you happy is really your purpose trying to tell you and whisper in your ear, and it's probably shouting in your ear. The good news is that this affirmation is true, that you and I are expressing a divine and perfect purpose always. It may be a whisper, it may be just a glimmer, but it's there. And affirmations are statements of spiritual reality, not something after which we're seeking. So even if it's not manifest, it's there. So let's say that affirmation again. I am expressing a divine and perfect purpose. And indeed you are, and indeed everyone around us is. And we are called and we are invited to find that purpose. And when we do, then we're able to allow it to be manifest and to bloom more magnificently in our own life, bringing us peace of mind and health of body and prosperity in all of the aspects of our being. And it is the will of God that we have the great good that is that divine and holy one's will for every one of us. And if we don't have that good, it is simply because we can't see beyond the appearances and we can't grasp that which is already in us. So this week, go out, and the homework is to look at that time where you were happiest and take it apart and see what it is that made you happy.